Hey everybody, welcome back to Rusty Wrench Restorations. I'm still Steve, and today we're finally going to be able to get this final drive put back together. So I've got the oven heating for a couple bearings that we need to install for the upper quill shaft or final drive shaft for the right hand final drive. So we got this quill shaft piece here to put in. There's a bearing on each side. I've already installed the seal here on the top end of the final drive. Once we get this together, we can start putting the clutch assembly together and get this final drive mounted back up on the crawler. All right, as I mentioned, I've already installed this seal. Don't forget to put this in, otherwise you're going to have oil from inside your final drive housing leaking into your clutch housing, and that's a bad day right there. Next thing I'm going to do is take this quill shaft or final drive shaft, and I'm going to put a little bit of the Lucas red and tacky over both the spline section and this inner bearing section. So I'm going to slide the shaft through the seal and into the housing. Next thing I'm going to do is flip this final drive housing over and support the back of this quill with some wood and keep it blocked and stable because we're going to be installing the bearing from the other side. So now that we've got the final drive flipped over, that quill shaft, let me give you the right name for it so you have it. Let's see, part number 18, final drive shaft is what it's saying basically. But anyway, it's in there, it's supported from the bottom. I've got a couple pieces of wood here and some shims in the back, basically just to keep everything from moving around. So basically, once this first bearing's ready, I'm going to bring it with the taper side down. I'm going to slide it over that shaft. I'll then take the smaller pinion gear and I'll put it on the shaft. And we're basically going to use this to drive that bearing to the correct location. And pretty much you want the ends of the splines to be flush with the top of this gear. There's going to be a second bearing that goes on top with the taper up, and then we'll put this this quill cover on the end using these shims to measure to see how much end play we need. And once that last bearing goes on, there's a little snap ring that goes in there to hold the whole assembly in place. And then these three bolts go on, and this bearing part's done. We'll flip it over and install the steering clutch. Let's get the bearings out of the oven. All right, bearing number one, taper side down. There she goes. Get a little grease on there, give her some lubrication until the oil gets flowing, and then we'll get our pinion gear on. Might need to move this around a bit to get everything to line up. There we go. And we'll drive her down. There we go. Splines are flush on the top. Get a little more my Lucas red and tacky. There we go. I'll go grab the top bearing. Taper up. Should slide right on. Grab our little driver here. All right, there we go. Again, a little red and tacky on there until the get that gear oil in there and gets flowing. Get some initial lubrication. All right, so now we'll install the, we got some shims and the quill shaft cover, and we'll tighten everything up. We might have to take this on and off a few times to get the measurements right for backlash, but that's it for the top of the final drive. All right, now that it's all back together, I can install my new gasket and put the drain pan on the bottom of the final drive. I like to leave that off until I'm done with everything in case I drop a piece. You know, I don't have to take it back apart, but just make sure you roll it over, make sure everything spins okay, nothing binding or anything, and we'll go from there. So once I get this end piece on, we'll go ahead and start stacking the clutch assembly. All right, here's the part we've all been waiting for. So I reinstalled the final drive pan at the bottom. Just remember, it can go on either way, but you want to try to get this plug, what would be on the inside part of the machine. Otherwise, when you want to go drain the gear oil out of this final drive, it's going to be hard getting in behind the sprocket. So the inside will be from underneath the tractor, easy to get to. So make sure that's good. I installed the first inner snap ring. Actually, I never took it off when I had this apart. There's really no reason to. I did clean these splines, put a liberally, is that a right word? Anyway, a light amount of grease on there. You don't want to pack this. Remember, this is going to be turning, not necessarily that fast, but it is inside a clutch housing, and we don't want to get grease on clutch components. So just a light coat on these splines. Just allow everything to move and slide freely. I did clean all the old grease out of this pilot bearing cup and installed some new grease in there. So the next step is going to be to take the brake drum assembly. So on the outside here is where your brake band would go for your brakes. And then inside this brake drum assembly is where the clutch components go. So basically, we're going to take this and slide it onto the shaft. I have my other snap ring, which we'll see if we can't. Let's get this spread. Of course, it's probably going to fight me. And we'll just kind of work it around. Come on. Get a little help here. There we go. All right, so snap rings in. Our clutch, brake drum's locked in place. The next step is going to be to take this part here. Let me look and see what they're actually calling this. All right, they're just calling this a shaft. But inside here is the pilot bearing. So this pilot bearing, again, I cleaned all the old grease off, put some new stuff on. This pilot bearing sits down inside that bearing cavity. And let's see if we can't get her in there. There we go. Should spin nice and easy. It's going to wobble a little bit because, you know, this other end of the shaft is going to be supported inside the rear end, plus once we get all the clutch components on here. So that's basically it. So now we're just going to start stacking clutch components. Now we're going to start stacking our clutch components. So I'm going to start with a composite disc first, and you'll see that these disc teeth will engage with the teeth of the shaft here. And then we'll take a steel piece. I just cleaned mine up. They're not really rotted or corroded or bent or anything, so no reason really to replace these in my eyes, but you can get new ones. Now the outer tabs of these are going to engage with the brake drum. That's it, and you just want to make sure they're all the way down, and we're just going to keep alternating composite, metal, composite, and so forth. All right. Now that we've installed all the composite and steel clutch discs, we're going to install the pressure plate. So you can see I've cleaned up the face of this here. And basically we're just going to slide it down. And we're going to install the bolts, and we're going to torque them 15 to 18 foot-pounds. Steering clutch adjustments. So really not a hard job at all. But you are going to need this special tool. It's a clutch adjustment gauge, if you will. You can buy them online. I know Lavoie sells them on his website. Keep them crawling, I believe, sells them. But what's nice about it, I think they're about $40. But you can use it for the engine clutch and for the steering clutches. So the STR, that's what I got labeled on mine for steering. You can use it for all three clutches on the machine. And if you have a crawler and you're doing any clutch work, it's imperative that you have it. So basically how this thing works is these two end pieces of the gauge are going to sit on top of the brake drum, the top flat part of the surface. And then we're going to use, I put some silver paint on here. It just makes it a little bit easier to see. But basically, we're going to slide this gauge back and forth to see where it is in regards to the tip of this pressure plate finger. So as you can see, when I slide this one forward, it's hitting the finger, right? So it should be able to pass over that with a slight bit of drag or resistance. So basically, since it's hitting, it's telling me that the rocker on this pressure plate finger is too high on the inside. So to make that adjustment, I want to raise the outside part of that to tilt it down. And in order to do that, there's a bolt and a lock washer back here. So basically, you're going to want to, let's see here, loosen the lock washer up. Use this wrench here, 1/2 inch. There we go. Get it going. So 1/2 inch for the bottom one, loosen that lock nut. And then 7/16 is what we're going to use to adjust that top bolt. So again, if that arm is rocked high in the front here, I want to lower it. So that means I need to raise this back part. So I'm going to thread this bolt out to raise the back part of this rocker. You can't really get a regular 7/16 wrench in here. I mean, you kind of can, but because of the width of it, it hits on the back part of this finger or the rocker. So I have this little Craftsman wrench. It's part number, let's see here, 42329. It's a 7/16 Craftsman. It's a little bit thinner than your average wrench. You might even be able to get away with like what I have here. This is just one of those real thin ones from like IKEA making furniture. I just don't have a 7/16. I got the 1/2 inch, but anyway, this Craftsman one works good. So again, I want to loosen this bolt as if I'm taking it out to raise the bolt. It'll lift the back and lower the front. So let's put a couple turns on here. Let's see where we're at. All right, so it's still sitting tight there. A few more turns in here. A little bit more. You just got to play around with it. It's really not bad. There we go. All right, so I passed it. See, now it slides way too easy. There's no drag. So I'm going to tighten it back in a little bit and try it again. Still too much here. Nope, passed it again. There we go. So now it's, you want to make sure both ends of these ends of the gauge are riding on the flat surface here, and that you just start to feel some resistance on that finger on the pressure plate. Still just a little bit tight, so I'm going to back it out just a tad more. There we go. That's perfect. And that's it. So you just want to feel a little bit of resistance there. Make sure your gauge is touching on both sides, and that finger for the pressure plate is properly adjusted. We'll just go around and we'll do the other two and we'll be all set. And there you have it. The right hand steering clutch assembly is back together again. So once you've made the adjustment on all three fingers, just use your gauge, check all three again to verify, and then make sure you tighten up the 1/2 inch lock nut on each one of the adjustment fingers, and you're good to go. The only thing left on this for me is I'm going to put a little bit of grease in this hole. That's where the pin slides through for your lever for actuating your brake bands on your brake drum. And then there's a 1.25 inch freeze plug that I have to put on the other side. Other than that, this final drive assembly is done, and we should be good to go. Alrighty, well, that's it for today's video. We finished getting the top end quill shaft bearings and seals in for the final drive, and we put the entire steering clutch assembly together, including adjustment. if you haven't done it before, I know it can be intimidating to think about taking this thing apart and getting it back together again, but it's really not that bad. Just make sure you have your book, follow the instructions in the book, go back to the video, pause, rewind, whatever you got to do. Send me a message, I'll help you out, whatever. Really isn't too bad. The biggest thing is to make sure that you properly adjust the fingers on your pressure plate, because once you put this final drive back on the crawler, you're not going to be able to make that adjustment. Once it's on, the only adjustment is for the actual throwout bearing itself and for the brake bands. But these adjustments ensure that the three of these fingers hit on the throwout bearing at the same time. If you have one of those fingers that's sticking out further than the other two, that one's constantly going to be pushing on that throwout bearing. You're going to start getting grooves in there. So make sure these three fingers are adjusted. That's like the most important thing about this whole thing, in my opinion. And now it's all back together. The next step, basically, I just got to clean some of the linkages and hardware that go inside the final drive housing. They've already been painted white inside there, like I told you before. And we'll go ahead and install the final drives on. And then we'll do our throwout bearing adjustment and brake band adjustment. And that's it for steering clutches and final drives. I do appreciate everybody that has taken the time to hit the subscribe button. I think we're at like 293 subscribers right now, which is great. Working towards that goal of 1,000. We'll see. Hopefully we can knock it out. But anyway, I appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.